It's a crooked system. It's a rigged system. We're running against a rigged system, and we're running against a very dishonest media. The media is very dishonest. Very, very dishonest.
Donald Trump speaking at a rally in Ashburn, Virginia earlier this week, calling the system rigged. And after several courts around our country shot down state voter ID laws aiming at protecting the integrity of the voting process, you can be forgiven if you agree that our system is on the way to being rigged. We want to show you right now that Mr. Trump is back on the stump in Green Bay, Wisconsin. We are monitoring what he has to say. It's expected that he may formally endorse Speaker Paul Ryan. We'll keep an eye on that. At any rate, let's return to the topic we're dealing with right now, and that is rigging the system. And to talk about it, we're pleased to be joined from Newsmax, Washington by my friend and old congressional colleague, Michael Patrick Flanagan. Mike, of course, now the president of Flanagan Consulting, and joining us via Skype, the president and general counsel of the Public Interest Legal Foundation, J. Christian Adams. Christian's also the author of the book, Injustice, Exposing the Racial Agenda of the Obama Justice Department. Gentlemen, the president took aim at Donald Trump's claims yesterday during a press conference. Let's look and listen.
Of course the elections will not be rigged. What does that mean? I've never heard of somebody complaining about being cheated before the game was over or before the scores even tallied. So my suggestion would be, go out there and try to win the election. If Mr. Trump is up 10 or 15 points on election day and ends up losing, then maybe he can raise some questions. That doesn't seem to be the case at the moment.
Mike, you and the president are both from Cook County. Given his Chicago background, why was he so flippant yesterday about this and so self-assured?
Well, riddle me this, JD. What do you think a community organizer does? He goes out and he registers people to vote. He goes out and he makes sure that everybody who can vote does vote, and he makes sure that every edge that can be given, and we'll put it nicely and say that can be developed for the party is developed for the party. On the way over to here tonight, as you know, I walk from my home to the studio. It's about an hour walk, and I have to walk right past the White House. And on my walk over, I got a call from the Illinois director who called me and said that she has reports from Cook County that in union halls, the card given to them by the Mexican embassy, the Mexican consulate, for illegals to be able to be in the country and identify who they are being used to register people to vote.
Oh.
And this poses a really hard problem in Chicago, because the Cook County State's Attorney, the City of Chicago forces, the Attorney General of the State of Illinois, and the Attorney General of the United States all have a vested interest in Hillary winning. And they can't be you can't tell them. What they'll do is they'll do an investigation, nothing will come of it. So you have to track it backwards if you're going to be able to find this. I think we're going to see a lot more of this before it's over. And it's horrible. And this is what I call retail vote theft. Mr. Obama was probably talking about wholesale vote theft. But I'm talking about retail vote theft where everybody in the team does a little bit and the right thing happens. And that's the Chicago way.
The Mexican matricula consular, the consulars call that becomes basically a voter ID, or they take them and they register them in the union halls. Yeah, that's really great. Hey, Chris, I gotta go to you on this because we saw that ruling by the 3 Democrat-appointed judges on the North Carolina voter ID law, saying they knew the intent of the legislature, and the Republican legislature was racist. Can a court really get away with that kind of decision?
Well, don't forget, one of them was a Bush appointee originally, and in Texas, you had 2 Bush appointees on the Fifth Circuit strike down Texas voter ID. So unfortunately, the Democrats are always in lockstep on the bench, but it's Republicans who have to worry about turncoats. Look, is the election rigged? Well, I don't think it's rigged in the sense that there's some kind of central command. The congressman is right that it's really, it's sort of like they set up a system that captures the prevailing winds of criminality. at Public Interest Legal Foundation, all we do is litigate election integrity cases. And there are cases all over the country where you have, in Virginia, for example, I know that certain registrars and election officials are aware of aliens on the voter rolls, illegal non-citizens on the voter rolls who are voting in Virginia, and they're doing nothing about it. In Pennsylvania, we have felons illegally on the voter rolls, and they're doing nothing about it.
You know, you mentioned Pennsylvania. Here's a chance, Christian, to talk to somebody from the Keystone State at 1-877-NEWSMAX from Philadelphia. John is on the line. John, welcome to Newsmax Prime.
Oh, glad to be here, and thanks for having me.
You bet.
Listen, my father was inspector registration. I'm going back to the 50s now, okay? And early 50s. And he was always finding people that didn't belong on the list to vote. They were either dead or they voted more than one time, and that was his job. And it went on here for years. And it still hasn't stopped, and it's going to go on forever because we don't have voter ID here.
Yeah, and look at what happened in certain voting wards in Philadelphia last election, where actually no votes for the Republican nominee, Mr. Romney. He may have been unpopular, but statistically, that was close to impossible. Well, as mentioned earlier, I was on Hardball last night with Chris Matthews, trying to tell those guys at MSNBC we need to have some common sense. Here's a little bit of that exchange. Excuse me, Democrats don't want to win elections? Now, wait a minute, we're all in this, and everybody wants to win elections.
We just want voters to be able to vote.
Up next.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Voters who are documented can vote.
Okay.
What's wrong with being who you are, who you say you are? Flanagan, maybe you can explain to me why they're so reluctant that voters are who they say they are.
I'll tell you, I watched the replay of that at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I think I need a trip to the psychiatrist to deprogram from listening to Chris Matthews for longer than half an hour. But I'll tell you this. You hit it on the head. Everybody wants to win, but voter laws, much like income tax laws, are dependent upon your personal sense of integrity. If collectively you are determined to defeat the system, you will. You absolutely will defeat the system. And I think we've reached a point in the society where we've turned a blind eye, even an admirable eye to people who can cheat the vote and say, wow, that was pretty cool. It's not pretty cool. It's awful, and you shouldn't be doing it. I know lots of people in Chicago who vote twice every election, and that's not a joke. They vote once in Chicago, they vote once in southern Wisconsin at their summer home, where it's at. And they feel they're entitled to do that because they have two homes, so they should be able to vote for 2 senators in 2 states, and they rationalize it. It's endemic, and it's horrible.
I'll say, and you know, what is admirable is you gave me the segue because you compared this to paying your taxes. And Christian, another major story today, a federal appeals court ruling says the IRS, in fact, targeted conservative groups, and the IRS needs to prove to the courts that they have permanently stopped this targeting. So, is this a major victory for the conservative groups, the Tea Party groups, or is it too little too late here in the waning days of the Obama administration?
Well, a little good, little bad. This is the True the Vote case that Public Interest Legal Foundation was litigating, and the D.C. Court of Appeals said that, you know, the Justice Department and the Obama administration put people in a catch-22. They said, we can't do anything about your nonprofit application because you're suing us. And they literally talked about the book Catch-22 in the opinion. And this administration knows no limits on the exercise of power. They think they can do whatever they want. And thank heavens we have a court today that ruled there are limits to what this IRS can do to regular people. And the case is going to go back down below for further consideration, although you can probably expect the DOJ to appeal it because they don't like to be told they acted lawlessly. And you'll probably see an IRS that hopefully is going to be put a little back more in the box.
Well, just to put this in perspective, since we heard the president talking about rigged elections, we're going to go back a couple of years ago when Bill O'Reilly asked President Obama about this whole targeting scandal. I just want to take you back. Listen to the president's assertion here where it's laid out for him, and he gets that grin on his face, much like yesterday, and then he offers what should be now an infamous line. Here it is.
There were some boneheaded decisions out of a
but
local
no
office.
mass corruption.
Not even mass corruption, not even a smidgen of corruption.
Okay.
Not a smidgen of corruption. Mike Flanagan, final 15 seconds to you.
Not a smidgen of corruption. I'll tell you, I was greeted today with a line analogous, but not exactly on this thing, about the $400 million that disappeared and Hillary's response. What difference does it make? It happened a long time ago. Well, you know what? When they exposed Watergate, it was ancient history, too. You know what? Just because it was a while ago, don't make it okay.
Yeah, old news. It's not like it's perishable. If it's breaking the law,
Right.
It's breaking the law. Mike Flanagan, come back a little later. Christian Adams will have you back again real soon, and we'll be back after this.